Welcome back. Welcome to the Premier Mindset by Premier Performance LLC. I'm your host, Trent Mailer, LCSW, licensed clinical therapist and performance coach, and this is episode 54. You wake up before your alarm. The room is dark, but your mind is already racing. You're scrolling through emails, notifications, Slack messages, and your calendar for the day. Every line, every ping, every task makes your chest tighten just a little more. You've built a life that looks like success to everyone else. Titles, bonuses, accolades, praise from peers, by all measures, you're winning. And yet, you feel like you're losing. You can't quite name it, but something is off. You try to push through, as high performers always do, coffee, workouts, productivity hacks, but nothing fills the hollow space inside. You can't keep up with the pace you set for yourself. And worse, you're not learning fast enough to stay ahead. Knowledge slips through your fingers, decisions feel heavier, complexity crushes clarity, and it happens silently until it doesn't. Let me be blunt. If your learning curve isn't accelerating at the same rate as your responsibilities, you're already behind. Not in a way anyone will notice immediately, but in a way that chips away at your effectiveness, your influence, and ultimately your control over the life you've built. Here's the reality most people won't tell you. Traditional learning methods, hours of reading, passive note-taking, standard training programs, are not enough for high performers. They weren't built to optimize your brain for speed, retention, and complex problem solving under pressure. You can be motivated, you can be disciplined, you can grind harder than everyone else, and yet you will still plateau. And that plateau will feel like incompetence, frustration, and self-doubt. Quick note before we dive in, this podcast is for education and performance growth. It's not a replacement for therapy or medical treatment. If there is something you need, make sure you go and get it. On top of that, all of our social media accounts are linked in the episode description, so make sure to follow along and get involved in those communities as we continue to drop content and build those out. Now let's dive in. Let me give you an example. There's a client I'll call Beth. She's a senior executive in a company running a team that oversees innovation and product launches. Beth is sharp, disciplined, and relentless. She reads faster than most people talk. She's in constant meetings, constantly absorbing new concepts, constantly making decisions. Yet she called me one morning and said, I feel like I'm running in quicksand. I'm learning things, but they don't stick. I forget details in meetings. I can't connect the dots fast enough to anticipate problems. I feel like I'm one step behind every single day. Beth's problem wasn't effort. It was efficiency of learning. Her brain was processing information, but it wasn't encoding it in a way that allowed quick recall or integration. Every meeting, every project, every high-stakes decision was a test she couldn't fully win because her cognitive architecture wasn't optimized. And here's the kicker. She was outperforming 95% of her peers, yet internally she felt like she was failing. This is the hidden cost of inefficient learning, and high performers pay it more than anyone else. Time, energy, influence, and confidence. Opportunities that pass you by while you're spinning at maximum effort but minimum retention. And the real danger? Most high performers don't notice it until it's critical, until a decision fails, until a client, team, or project is compromised, until your edge erodes silently. That's why today we're going to do something most podcasts won't. We're going to teach you to upgrade your learning abilities. Not just faster reading or better memorization tricks. I'm talking about understanding deeply, retaining permanently, and being able to solve complex problems faster than everyone else. Tools and techniques designed for elite performance. By the end of this episode, you'll understand exactly where you're leaking learning power and how to fix it systematically, strategically, and with high precision. Let's start with the first tool, something I call the neural encoding audit. This is deceptively simple, but highly effective. Here's the idea. Most of the time, you think you're learning when in fact you're just consuming information. You read, you watch, you listen, but the brain doesn't automatically store that info in a way that makes it usable under pressure. Encoding is the process by which your brain transforms information into lasting retrievable knowledge. And if your encoding isn't precise, you're building a house on sand. The neural encoding audit is about mapping how your brain currently encodes information. Ask yourself right now, when you learn something new, what actually sticks? Do you retain concepts long term, or does it disappear after a meeting or a report? Do you understand it enough to explain it to someone else without notes, or do you immediately know how to apply it in real situations? Or does it require repeated effort, reminding, revisiting, rereading? Beth and I went through this audit in her first session. We mapped every type of information she interacts with: financial models, product plans, team communications, industry reports, competitive intelligence. For each category, we asked, what sticks naturally? What requires double the effort to recall? What leaks out completely? Within just 30 minutes, patterns emerged. Certain concepts were retained almost automatically, but strategic thinking frameworks, long-term problem simulations, and cross-team integration points were slipping through the cracks. That gap explained why she felt behind despite the hours she poured into learning. Here's the key. Awareness alone is half the battle. Most high performers don't stop to audit their learning process. They assume their results are fine because they're productive, busy, and disciplined. But productivity does not equal learning, efficiency does not equal retention, and understanding does not equal integration. Until you map it, you're blind to where your edge is leaking, and recognition will always be the first step. Let's make this real with a scenario. Imagine a high-stakes leadership meeting. You've got your team, your stakeholders, your CEO on a call. A complex problem arises: multiple variables, conflicting priorities, and incomplete data. You know you've read reports, internal memos, and strategic plans, but when the question lands on your desk, the pieces don't click fast enough. You fumble, you pause, you guess. Your team notices. Your influence dips, not because you're incapable, but because your encoding wasn't optimized to handle complexity under pressure. That moment, it compounds over months, affecting decisions, credibility, and outcomes. The first step is stopping the cycle. Neural encoding audit lets you identify what's actually retained versus what's fleeting. Then you build a plan to strengthen weak points and create rapid retrieval pathways. That means fewer mistakes, faster problem solving, and more influence without increasing effort. Next, we layer in a subtle but critical component: energy signal mapping. This is about noticing when learning works best for you and when it fails. Most high performers ignore this because they've been conditioned to push through fatigue, distraction, or discomfort. But your body knows more than your mind. Beth noticed that her best learning moments weren't in early morning webinars or late night reports. They were during high focus periods mid-morning after her initial team sync, when adrenaline and engagement were aligned. By mapping energy signals to learning success, you can time your complex problem solving and critical decisions for maximal retention and clarity, instead of randomly hoping for peak performance. Next, we escalate stakes by asking a hard question. If you don't optimize how you learn, what happens next? Opportunities pass, competitors outpace you, teams lose confidence, stress accumulates because knowledge gaps require compensatory effort. You're high performing on the surface, but under pressure, your edge erodes. And here's the brutal truth: you can't buy this skill, you can't outsource it, and you can't fake it. Mastery is a combination of self-awareness, strategy, and disciplined execution. Best breakthroughs didn't come from working harder. It came from seeing the gaps clearly, mapping energy signals, and learning how to encode strategically. Within weeks, she retained more complex data, solved problems faster, and made higher impact decisions with less mental strain. Her team noticed. Her influence amplified. Her confidence stabilized, and she reclaimed the edge she thought she lost. So here's your takeaway for this first section. The first step to upgrading your learning abilities is awareness and measurement. Audit how your brain encodes, map when you perform best, and confront the hidden inefficiencies that are silently eroding your performance. These are not soft skills. They are tactical, measurable, high-performance instruments. Next, we'll escalate. We're going to examine how this underperformance bleeds into leadership, identity, team dynamics, and high-stakes situations, I'll introduce tools that allow you not just to retain knowledge, but to apply it under pressure, at scale, and with precision. Right now, take a brief pause. Consider the last time you struggled to recall critical information under pressure. The last time a problem felt more complex than your ability to solve it. That feeling isn't normal, it's a signal. And it's exactly where we're going to transform it into an edge next. Let's take it up a notch. Awareness alone isn't enough. You now know that your learning efficiency has holes. Gaps where retention falters, where understanding fails under pressure. But here's what most high performers miss. These gaps don't just affect you. They bleed into every relationship, every team, every decision that relies on your competence. Imagine this scene. You're in the conference room, mid-project, where stakes couldn't be higher. Your team has been working for weeks on a strategic initiative that could redefine the company's trajectory. You're leading the discussion, but a complex scenario emerges. Data conflicts, competing priorities, and external dependencies. And suddenly, you realize your recall isn't as fast as it needs to be. The connections that should light up instantly in your mind don't. You feel it physically first. Your jaw tightens, your shoulders tense, your heart rate nudges upwards. You pause, your team notices. A junior analyst hesitates, waiting for your guidance. A senior peer frowns. Questions come faster than answers, and in that silence, credibility is eroding. You're performing well on the surface, but under the hood, misalignment between your cognitive abilities and your responsibilities is visible and expensive. This is where adaptive stress mapping comes in. It's a method I use with every high-performing client to identify how your nervous system reacts under cognitive pressure. Think of it as a radar for mental performance. Where do you tighten up? Where do you accelerate? Where do you plateau? Beth, the executive from earlier, experienced this firsthand. In a simulated high-pressure scenario, we tracked her response across heart rate, focus level, and decision clarity. What we found was eye-opening. When faced with multi-variable decisions, her nervous system compensated. She would over-focus on minor details, neglecting critical connections. Moments later, she'd experience mental fatigue that she had previously chalked up to just being busy. Mapping these stress responses isn't abstract, it's tactical. It allows you to know your physiological and cognitive thresholds and to intervene before mistakes, frustrations, or tension manifest in your team. High performers aren't just strong, they're responsive, calibrated, and delivered under pressure. Now overlay this with relational impact. In the conference room, tension escalates. A team member challenges a data assumption. Another questions your timeline. Your mind is racing, but the connections that would allow you to synthesize the problem are just out of reach. Decisions stall, friction grows, internal confidence wavers. And here's the brutal truth. Leaders are evaluated not only by what they know, but by how others perceive their competence in real time. We've now entered identity level stakes. This isn't just about missing facts, it's about perceived authority, trust, and influence. Your team feels uncertainty. Your peers question judgment. You feel the erosion internally, and if unchecked, it compounds over weeks and months. Awareness alone won't fix it. You need strategies that allow you to operate beyond the friction, to make complex connections quickly, and to retain composure under pressure. Enter future self problem simulation. This isn't a soft visualization exercise, it's a tactical tool for high performers. You take a complex scenario, project it forward, and simulate decisions from the vantage of your optimal self. Think of it as stress testing your brain. You engage with problems before they exist, anticipating consequences, testing options, and integrating knowledge in real time. Here's how Beth used it. We simulated a scenario where a competitor launched a surprise product move that threatened her market share. Using future self-problem simulation, she mentally walked through every decision branch, team reallocation, messaging strategy, operational adjustments. By the end of the session, she had a clear map of actions and contingencies, and when a similar real-world challenge arose weeks later, her recall, integration, and application of knowledge were immediate. She wasn't just reacting, She was operating ahead of the curve. Let's step back and consider the cost if she hadn't done this. In high stakes leadership, gaps in learning and retention don't stay contained, they cascade. Delayed decisions, misaligned teams, lost opportunities, diminished influence. It's a slow erosion of your professional authority. And internally, it's a psychological tax. Self doubt, second guessing, frustration, and the gnawing sense that no matter how much you accomplish, you're always a step behind. This is where most high performers crash. They think raw effort will compensate for inefficient encoding and unoptimized stress responses. They push, grind, multitask, double down, but the leakage continues. And the team, the culture, the relationships, they feel it, not subtly, subconsciously, like static on a connection. Now imagine a high pressure team meeting where your learning gaps are visible, your stress is peaking, and your team is silently reacting. This is a critical moment. It's not just about retention, it's about leadership under fire. You can either collapse under the weight of cognitive misalignment, or you can operate intentionally using your mapped stress responses and forward-looking simulations. Here's the takeaway. Identity level mastery requires turning internal awareness into relational performance. You need to recognize your learning gaps, map how they affect your stress response, and simulate future high-stakes problems before they appear. When applied correctly, these tools allow you to lead decisively, maintain credibility, and retain authority even under extreme pressure. Let's pause and make it clear. Picture the following. You're in a boardroom. A major client just shifted requirements unexpectedly. A team member challenges your assumptions, and the clock is ticking. Your brain instinctively jumps to solutions, but the neural connections are sluggish. Adaptive stress mapping tells you which nodes in your cognitive network are overloaded. Future self-problem simulation shows the most effective path forward towards the solution. You intervene calmly, decisively, and with authority. The client feels your control. The team feels your clarity. The problem is solved faster than anyone anticipated. You didn't just respond. You leveraged your brain's optimization to create an unassailable edge. This is the psychological reward of optimized learning. It's not just retention, it's the alignment of cognition, stress response, and relational impact. Teams feel it, leaders notice it, competitors envy it, and internally, your confidence shifts from fragile to unshakable. Identity level mastery is more than a skill, it's a statement of presence. When your learning is optimized, your brain operates faster, your stress is calibrated, and your decisions carry weight because they are rooted in both clarity and confidence. Your team doesn't just follow, they anticipate your guidance. Your influence expands because you're consistently ahead, not just reactive. By now, the stakes should be clear. Inefficient learning is not just a personal performance problem, it is a relational hazard. It erodes team cohesion, delays execution, and diminishes influence. And it is solvable, but only if you escalate from awareness to strategic, identity level intervention. Here's the final integration for this part. Take the neural encoding audit from earlier, overlay it with adaptive stress mapping, and project outcomes with future self-problem simulation. This triad turns abstract awareness into a tactical advantage. It transforms gaps into opportunities, stress into a map, and complexity into actionable foresight. Best Transformation illustrates this perfectly. Before these tools, her team questioned her decisiveness. She hesitated in high-pressure meetings. She doubted her own instincts. After systematic implementation, her confidence stabilized, her influence strengthened, and team alignment improved dramatically. And here's the subtle but critical point. She didn't work harder, she worked smarter, optimizing how her brain learns, stores, and applies knowledge in real time. Take a moment, reflect on your own environment. Where are you showing up in meetings, on the field, or in the boardroom without full cognitive clarity? Where are stress signals subtly undermining your influence? Where are decisions delayed because your neural encoding isn't optimized? These aren't abstract questions. They are diagnostics for elite performance failure or breakthrough. Next, we escalate even further. We go beneath the surface to the structural systems that determine whether your brain can handle complexity consistently. Deliberate practice, cognitive chunking, high fidelity rehearsal, and integrating lessons with your nervous system. You'll see exactly how to build permanent upgrades to your learning ability so high pressure situations aren't just manageable, they become your arena to dominate. By now you've felt it. You're aware that your brain isn't performing at its peak. You've seen how the misalignment impacts not just your work, but your team, your influence, and the decisions that define your leadership. But awareness and identity level insight alone won't create transformation. High performers, executives, athletes, entrepreneurs need structural solutions, interventions that rewire how your brain encodes, retrieves, and applies knowledge under pressure. Let's step into that arena. Think back to your most frustrating moment in the second part. The boardroom, the locker room, the pivot point where your cognitive load exceeded your capacity. That moment revealed a systematic problem. Your nervous system, practice routines, and cognitive architecture were not aligned for rapid learning under stress. You may have relied on memory, willpower, or just sheer grit. That's a fine starting point, but it's inefficient. It's reactive, and in high stakes environments, reactive is too slow. The structural tool is cognitive chunking and integration. It's deceptively simple, but extraordinarily powerful. The human brain doesn't retain massive, unstructured streams of data efficiently. It thrives on patterns, relationships, and hierarchical organization. Chunking is the process of breaking complex information into meaningful units and then integrating those units into your existing knowledge network. Here's how it works in practice. Imagine an athlete learning a new play sequence or an executive simulating a multivariable market report. Instead of trying to memorize isolated facts, you group related components into functional models. For example, a financial report isn't just numbers, it's segmented into cash flow patterns, revenue drivers, and operational risk signals. Once chunked, your brain doesn't see 300 individual data points, it sees 5 actionable insights, each linked to previous knowledge. Integration occurs when these chunks are connected across context, strategy meetings, negotiation scenarios, decision-making simulations. Let me be transparent. I hit a plateau with this myself early in my career. I would read dense material, take notes, and hope retention followed. Sometimes it did, but a lot of the time it didn't. I'd finish a chapter or a briefing and realize I could barely recall half the concepts under pressure. Some of the time I was just rereading pages. That changed when I began deliberately chunking information into narrative and functional modules, then integrating them into real-world scenarios. Suddenly, retention skyrocketed. Problems that had once felt insoluble now triggered immediate neural pathways for solutions. That same approach underlies elite learning in top athletes and executives. It's not luck, it's engineered. But chunking alone isn't enough. High fidelity practice cycles take chunked knowledge and subject it to layered, variable repetition under realistic constraints. This isn't mindless drilling. It's not passive review. It's simulated pressure, strategic variation, and feedback driven refinement. Think of it as cognitive weight training. Your brain strengthens the neural connections required for rapid retrieval, application, and decision making under conditions that replicate reality. Consider this. A basketball player doesn't just shoot 200 free throws and hope skills transfer. They vary angles, simulate defensive pressure, practice under fatigue. Similarly, in executive work, high fidelity practice might involve role playing and negotiation scenarios, rapid decision financial modeling, or crisis simulations that mirror real world constraints. Each cycle rewires the brain's response to stress and complexity, turning inefficiency into automatic. Integration of these cycles with the adaptive stress mapping and the future self problem simulation, like we talked about earlier, creates a feedback loop. You track your stress response, simulate future challenges, and rehearse strategic solutions in increasingly realistic environments. Over time, the brain stops reacting impulsively. It learns to perform under pressure with accuracy and speed. Now let's bring in the meta-reflection and strategic retrieval, another structural tool. This is where you consolidate mastery and reinforce identity-level performance. After each practice cycle or high-pressure engagement, you engage in deliberate reflection. What chunks were easy to retrieve? Which required effort? Where did stress distort judgment? You then consciously reinforce retrieval pathways, solidifying connections across contexts. This isn't journaling fluff, it's tactical neural maintenance, ensuring your optimized learning persists across weeks, months, and years. Here's a practical scenario. A senior executive I worked with was managing multiple high-stakes launches simultaneously. Despite long hours and disciplined preparation, he consistently froze when unexpected variables emerged. Together, we implemented chunking for this information intake, layered it with high-fidelity scenario-based rehearsal, and followed every session with meta-reflection. Within 6 weeks, he reported 2 profound changes. First, complex decisions were mentally accessible in minutes instead of hours. Second, his team noticed a palpable shift. He led with clarity and authority, even under ambiguity. And let's make this deeper. Picture yourself tackling a multi-layered problem. A merger, a championship game, a high-stakes client negotiation. The old version of you stalls, overwhelmed by variables, mentally scrambling, unsure where to start. The new version, operating with cognitive chunking, high-fidelity practice, and meta-reflection, sees the structure immediately. Patterns emerge, decisions are deliberate, not reactive, stress is mapped and managed. Your team reads your confidence and clarity. Execution is precise, influence is reinforced, and outcomes become predictable, replicable, and superior. I want to pause and highlight a subtle but critical point. Performance mastery isn't just technical, it's identity reinforcement. Every time you engage these structural tools, you're not only training your brain, you're training your nervous system, your confidence, and your presence under pressure. Each cycle reinforces the truth. You're capable of retaining, integrating, and applying knowledge faster than those around you. You're not merely competent, you're optimized. And with this, I think this is a great point to stop and talk about learning processes. We're not going to go super deep in it as we're talking about it in a lot of different ways. I want to talk about a little bit of specifics with how to learn. One thing that is really important with learning is making sure to break it up. And we tend to work best by learning in 90-minute intervals. So whatever you're working on, if you try and do it for hours, you're going to probably stop retaining information at a certain point. We have seen in research we are really good at learning in about 90-minute intervals. So if you can do 90 minutes at a time, take a break, do other things, and come back to it, that will do well for you. And with that 90-minute interval, there are 2 things you can do either before or after. You could do both, before and after, but they help implement and retain that information more, helping it be encoded so you can access it when you need it next. And those 2 things are sleep and exercise. So you could say exercise, then learn for 90 minutes, and then take a nap. You could do it opposite. You could nap, learn for 90 minutes, and then go work out. You could, go for a run, learn something, and then go do a workout of some sort. Don't push it too far. You could just follow it with 2 naps before and after. But essentially, either one of those things, followed by 90 minutes of learning, is kind of a way to optimize that learning session, whatever you're doing. So try to implement that with what you're doing. Now let's keep going. By now, you should feel the escalation. Awareness, identity level stakes, and now structural mastery. The difference is profound. You're moving from reactive, effort-based performance into strategic, systemized, high-output cognition. And here's the kicker. These tools are scalable. They apply to any high-performing context, boardrooms, sports fields, entrepreneurial pivots, or high-stakes negotiations. Before we close this part, I want you to internalize this principle. Optimization without reflection is incomplete. You can chunk and rehearse endlessly. If you don't meta-reflect and strategically retrieve, learning decays. Every tool introduced so far, neural encoding, audit, adaptive stress mapping, future self problem simulation, cognitive chunking, high-fidelity practice cycles, feeds into the final layer. It's the glue that ensures your elevated learning becomes permanent, applied, and adaptive. In this final part, we escalate to long-term trajectory, how these tools solidify legacy-level mastery, leadership presence, and influence. We'll close with an emotional, identity-based moment, showing not only how to retain knowledge and solve complex problems faster, but how this transforms the trajectory of your career, your team, and your life. You've seen the journey: awareness of underperformance, identity level stakes, structural mastery of your learning and cognitive systems. Now it's time to bring it all together, not as a summary, but as a launch pad for long-term, high-performance leadership and life trajectory. Here's the reality. The difference between a high performer who stagnates and one who dominates their domain isn't raw talent. It isn't hours spent grinding or sheer effort. It's how effectively you encode, retrieve, and apply knowledge under pressure, consistently, strategically, and deliberately. It's how you integrate these tools we've discussed into your identity, your nervous system, and your daily routines. Let's start with neural encoding audit, the first tool we introduced in the first part. By now, you know it's not enough to recognize inefficient encoding. You must systematize it into every learning cycle, every decision, every interaction. High performers who truly retain, understand, and apply knowledge check their encoding patterns continuously. They recognize when a meeting, a play, or a market shift is leaking information because it hasn't been structured or stored optimally. Combine that with adaptive stress mapping. Think of your stress response as a barometer for learning potential. When tension spikes, your nervous system is giving you actionable data. Some scenarios are overloading your current encoding and retrieval strategies. The high-performing leader doesn't just push blindly through it. They map stress to learning outcomes, adjust strategies, and use those moments to strengthen their cognitive resilience. Over time, the body stops signaling failure and starts signaling optimization. And then there's future self-problem simulation. The elite don't wait for challenges to force learning. They simulate high-stakes scenarios before they happen. They integrate complex problems in advance, envisioning solutions from multiple perspectives. You've done this with your practice cycles and chunked knowledge. Now apply it to strategic foresight. The goal isn't prediction, it's mental readiness. When the real challenge hits, you already have a neural pathway forged for speed, accuracy, and confidence. It's here that cognitive chunking and integration and high-fidelity practice cycles merge. Chunked knowledge provides the architecture. High-fidelity cycles embed the function. Together, they create a mental environment where complex problems are recognized, processed, and resolved efficiently. You're no longer scrambling under pressure. You're navigating with precision. And every cycle, every reflection, every simulation compounds. Mastery isn't a single event. It's layered, iterative, and accumulative. Meta-reflection and strategic retrieval closes the loop. After every project, every high-pressure engagement, every performance test, you ask, which chunks were solid? Which required more rehearsal? Where did stress distort cognition? You actively reinforce your neural pathways, connecting your structural mastery to your identity as a high performer. This isn't introspection for its own sake. It's strategic, tactical, and outcome-driven. You're training your brain, your nervous system, and your confidence simultaneously. Now imagine the long-term trajectory. Picture a high-performing executive who can assimilate complex market intelligence in hours, simulate outcomes, anticipate bottlenecks, and lead decisively. Picture an athlete who internalizes new plays instantly, adapts mid-game under pressure, and elevates team performance. That's the power of integrated learning mastery. It's not hypothetical, it's a system, and it's replicable. Let me give you a moment to internalize this. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine sitting in a high-stakes boardroom. The project is behind, the client is impatient, your team is tense. In the past, you might have felt panic creeping in, decisions delayed, confidence fractured. Now, with neural encoding optimized, stress mapped, cognitive chunks integrated, high-fidelity cycles rehearsed, and strategic retrieval applied, you step in, calm, precise, and instantly effective. Your team reads it, the client reads it, And you know you're operating at a level most people can't even imagine. That's not luck, that's mastery. This is also the moment I want you to carry into your daily life. High performance isn't intermittent, it's habitual, it's systematic, and it requires accountability. Education alone isn't enough. Tools without execution, without reflection, without stress optimization produce marginal gains, not transformation. Here's the challenge I want to leave you with. Look at the domains where you want to dominate: your career, your sport, your team, your personal growth. Ask yourself honestly, are you applying these tools with precision, intensity, and integration, or are you still relying on effort alone? High performers don't wait for conditions to be perfect. They don't rely on motivation alone. They take control of their nervous system, their learning architecture, and their identity as a problem solver. That's what puts them consistently ahead. That's what separates leaders who influence and leave legacies from those who plateau quietly. Finally, be the performer who not only learns faster, but masters the application, integrates feedback, and anticipates challenges, and leaves a trail others can follow. This is what high performers do, and you can't do it alone. And you can't do it alone. That's why partnering with Premier Performance ensures your optimization isn't theoretical. It's measurable, guided, and accountable. You deserve a system that transforms awareness, identity, and structure into consistent, high-level performance. This episode isn't just about learning faster. It's about designing a high-performance life that retains knowledge, solves problems faster, and scales impact across your leadership, your team, and your legacy. That's the Premier mindset in action. Resilient minds, premier results. Recognition is always the first step. Seeing these things helps us get started. So if any of this is hitting home, don't just sit on it. Get to work. As always, this episode is meant to provide tools for performance, not replace individualized therapy. If you're struggling with anxiety, burnout, or persistent stress, professional guidance is critical. At Premier Performance LLC, we work with high achievers to implement strategies like these with precision, accountability, and results. I make it a point to give you actionable tools to find success in your life. So I want to know how it's going. If it's helping, let me know. If it's not, let me know. I like staying connected and knowing how things are going in your life. And I would love to hear things happening in your life too, whether it be accomplishments, achievements, failures, disappointments, or anything in between. Just let me know how things are going. I want to be a resource and I want to connect with you guys and see how life is going. On top of that, I'd love to hear how this episode impacts you. Give me some feedback. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. Leave us reviews if it's powerful. This helps us spread the podcast and get it in front of more people, which is our ultimate goal. We're trying to provide this education and awareness to as many people as possible. And if there's someone in your life that you think that is struggling with learning or could benefit from hearing these topics or these ideas, send it their way. It might be the exact thing they're looking for and they just never knew it was out there. So just send the link. If they don't listen to it, really no big deal. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a big pressure thing, but it might really help them. On top of that, if there is anything you need, you can reach out, and I'd love to connect with you guys in a lot of different ways. If you want to work together, you can reach out in these ways, and I'd love to connect. You can connect with me through my email, which is tmailer@premierperformancereno.com. My last name spelled Mahler. You could text or call me directly at 775-561-0056. You could follow along and get involved on our Instagram and TikTok pages where we post content every day, and I am on, so you guys can message me and connect with me through there too. They both have the same name, which is Premier_Performance_Reno. We have the Facebook page and the LinkedIn page that both have the same name as well, which is Premier Performance LLC. Then we have the Twitter or the X account, which is @Premier Reno LLC. And then finally our website, which is www.premierperformancereno.com. So feel free to reach out with anything you guys got. I'd love to stay connected and try and help out with anything you got going on. Just let me know what's happening. Next week, we're going to continue by talking about the topic of what to do when you start collapsing, when it feels like you're spiraling and everything's falling apart. Just what to do, how to handle it, how to go through it, and how to keep things from falling apart and creating more problems for you later. So we'll dive into that. That'll be a good one. I think it'll be very powerful and helpful for a lot of people. Other than that, keep following along with all the social media. We post content literally every day with new podcast episodes coming out every week. It's been great doing these things for you. I love doing them with you guys, and I love hearing all these things that I've heard from you guys. So keep staying connected, letting us know how things are going. We love hearing and just discussing things in general with you guys. If there's anything you need, let me know. Otherwise, enjoy yourself. Go be the best you can be. Put yourself out there and chase something that scares you just a little bit. Let's see where it brings you. Have a good one. I'll talk to you guys soon.